Hello and welcome to the first ever the Cosmic Force, the latest addition to the Utini Podcast Network. Thank you guys for being here tonight. My name is Tyler Reganti, and I will be one of your hosts each and every Wednesday night right here on the Utini YouTube page. But I'm not the only host of the Star Wars comic show. So let me introduce you to the rest of the team here on the Cosmic Force. And I'll start with somebody you may recognize if you spent some time watching our amazing YouTube content. And that's Emma Park. Emma, how's it going tonight?
Hey, Tyler. Hey, everybody. I am so excited for the show to start. It feels like a long time in the making, but we are here and it feels crazy. So yeah, welcome everybody.
All right. Yes. And our third host that we have tonight is Caleb Lamanick. Caleb, how are we feeling tonight?
I'm feeling really good. I'm excited to be here. I'm kind of a newer face here. I'm a staff writer here on the Utini site, so I'm excited to really get into this whole situation and really talk some deep lore about comics, really get into this. So let's have a good first episode and many more to come.
And rounding out the crew tonight is our producer, and that is Caleb Bosch. Caleb,
Jacob, you're so
Bosch.
Close.
So close. Jacob, how are we doing tonight?
Pretty good. Everything seems to work so far, knocking on my desk, and yeah, let's just hope it stays that way. I'm excited to talk about comics with everyone. So it's been a long time coming.
Everything is working except my ability to read. So far we're off to a good start. But we are part of the newly announced Utini Podcast Network, which is home to the Utini family of shows created and produced by Utini staff members that fulfills Utini's overarching mission of guiding Star Wars fans through the Star Wars universe. For those who don't know, Utini is a community of positive fans that share our love for the greater Star Wars universe. If you love Star Wars and you've been looking for a community of people to share that love with in a positive way, well, Chewie, you're home. You can find the link to our Discord server in the show notes and in the chat, where we will have a community that's approaching almost 1,000 members now. And if you like what you see, you want to say thanks, head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Utini, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Utini podcast network of shows, as well as exclusive merch and community involvement activities. As I said at the top of the show, we are going to be a weekly podcast and show broadcasting live right here on youtube.com/Utini every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. If you can't join us live, that's okay. All of our videos will be available on the YouTube channel, and we will soon be available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. So keep an eye out in the Discord, and we'll let you know as soon as we have all those things finalized. But I want to go ahead and get right into it. You know, this is something that we have been practicing for and preparing for a very long time, and it kind of really started with a simple question. Why should we be doing this? So Jacob, outside of the obvious, why did we decide to start the show?
Well, for me, it was, Corey came to me and we were talking about what I would do at Utini. I just started back in January. And he said we're looking for some comics coverage. We have the big shows, The Living Force, covering mostly canon books. We have Legends Look Back, covering mostly Legends books, but we don't really have anything to cover comics. So, that's something we really wanted to cover here. It was a big blind spot that we just hadn't been giving enough attention to. So, figured why not make a show out of it. So that's why we're here. There are so many amazing stories in Star Wars comics right now, and we'd love to share it with you and help you get into comics. We know it can be an intimidating world to get into. There's a lot out there. There's like 500 issues of Marvel canon comics, and it's hard to know where to start. But hopefully we'll be able to help you with that and get you going.
I know that Caleb, when we were talking, in these last couple of weeks, I know that one of the things that you were really excited about was the characters that we have known in the comics, but that some of the people who aren't as familiar with the comics really get to know. So we want to talk about that for a moment.
Oh, absolutely. We often talked a lot about in like pre-shows and as we're, getting together and first doing this, when we see Luke Skywalker on screen, he has, 4 or 5 hours of screen time in the movies. And that's a lot for a character But we have literally hundreds of issues of comics of him, being a protagonist and, struggling and growing in that sort of sense. So having like another medium to explore these famous characters that we know, it's amazing. And then after that, of course, we have a large amount of unique characters to the comics. So our favorite, of course, being Dr. Aphra. We'll be talking more about later on down the show, but we're really excited about comics expanding the EU in a very accessible way. So, that's what we want to do is we want to talk comics, we want to talk characters, and we also want to talk creators. So, you might be wondering, what can you expect from the show? What does a show of the Cosmic Force look like? So let's kind of take a 1,000-foot view, big overall look here. So first things first, we are going to talk about comics news. We'll be going over what's the new announcements are. We're going to be talking about what came out this week in comics. Kind of a general overview. We're not going to be going into gritty details. So you don't have to read every single comic as it's coming out to feel like you should be a part of the show. We want this show to be accessible and successful as possible. So, we're not going to be doing spoiler talk immediately for comics. Any spoilers we'll be discussing will be in a delayed format, usually about 3 to 4 months after publication. So don't worry about that. We're also going to be doing deep dives into artists and series and volumes. We want to spotlight creators. We want to talk about the writers and the pencilers and the inkers, and just really talk about who makes this comics, because comics are a very small production. As weird as it might sound, there's not a ton of people that work per comic, so it's easy for us to pull out, ooh, this is my favorite artist, and then do a deep dive throughout the rest of their comics. So that's what we want to do. And of course, one thing that we want to do for all our Utini podcasts here is we want to be interactive. We want you, the listener, to be able to participate, read along with us. So tweet at us, leave comments in that YouTube section. We're at Cosmic Force Show. We want you to send your favorite artwork of the week and send that to us. We'll be having the sections where we'll be talking about that. And if you have any questions about comics in general, in detail at all, leave them in the comments right now. We want to be addressing that at the end of the show. So start putting your comments in there. We'll be picking out the best ones and answering them a little later on.
All right. Yeah, there's a lot to cover. And for those of you who aren't used to comics and might be a little bit new, we're going to make sure that we cover everything in a really easy and understandable way. But we also don't want to ignore some of the people that might be a little bit more familiar. So there might be some terms that you'll hear us say or some things that are really going to make sure that we speak to you, because we want comics are fun. Comics are easy. Comics are very easy to digest, and they're short. And so we want to make sure that we are making ourselves available to everybody. So the more people that are able to get into comics, the more they're going to enjoy, the universe that there is. And so we're going to go ahead and move on to our first segment of the night, and that's our weekly pull list. And that's what's Jacob's going to kind of go over all the things that came out today as New Comic Book Day. So Jacob, what do we have this week?
Yeah, so we have 2 new comic books today. Again, for newer comic readers, Marvel and IDW put out their books on Wednesday, and that's Who Does Star Wars. So the first one is Star Wars: The High Republic, issue number 4. There Is No Fear, chapter 4. The writer is Cavan Scott. Pencils are by Ario Anandito. The cover is by Phil Noto. Inker is Mark Morales. Colorist is Annalisa Leone, and the letterer is Ariana Meyer. And then the second issue that came out today was the High Republic Adventures number 3 with writer Daniel Jose Older and artist Harvey Tolabao. So both of these, again, we don't want to talk spoilers on a week-to-week basis, but I've read them both, and they are both very good. If you're into the High Republic, I would definitely check these out. They are not the best issues to jump into first. Just go back to number 1. We're not that far in, but you can catch up, and they're great stories. And if you're into the High Republic, they have a lot of story significance. It's not just, it's important to the overall story.
The Discord chat was really active earlier today. Emma, did you see that earlier today with all the news about episode or issue 4 today?
I did. Oh my gosh, issue 4 today was absolutely nuts. I was excited to read it this morning. And the High Republic Adventures #3 was also very good. And no spoilers, obviously, because it just came out today. But I will say that Yoda says something about something like sweet pastries or something like that. And it was so funny. And I love that. So yeah, everybody go check that out for sure.
Yes. So pick those up today. We'll tell you a little bit later today. If you're, like I said, if you're new to comics and you're wondering how to pick that up, don't worry. We're going to tell you how to do that in just a second. But before we do, we're going to go into a next little summit that we're calling What We're Loving. And that's where we kind of decide a panel of the week or a piece of art of the week that really called out to us. And I'm actually going to go first because this was something that when we were kind of going over this and we were told to pick a panel, you can see it up on the screen right there. I was telling the team here, like, this is what I envision the Utini community members to be if they were written in comic form. This is the last panel of Darth Vader #8 from 2017, and that's Charles Soule run. It's penciled by Giuseppe Camuncoli. And I just love this because it's everything of not only about Utini that I envisioned, but it's everything about comics that I love. It's taking a very minor character in Jocasta Nu and giving her just this awesome moment that we would have never seen had it not been for comics. She gets what, 5 seconds, one scene in the movies, and now she gets a whole arc in this comic. So it's really awesome, and just her, and that's the grand, if you can't see, that's the Grand Inquisitor right there that she's facing off against. It's a great scene, and I just love everything about it. Emma, what are you loving this week?
Yeah, so first of all, love that art, love Joe Castano, love that quote, so good. My art this week is from Darth Vader 2020, issue #4, with art by Raphael Yanko. And this was just like one of the coolest and mind-blowing moments that I've ever seen in comics. Getting together all of the handmaidens after Padme's death, and you have the sort of flashback version that's in kind of like a red hue, and then the current day version. And left to right, we've got Irte, Rabe, Sabe, Sashay, and Dorme. I know Eric was excited about this. I was excited about this. It's just
you
really,
said
really
the
cool
magic
stuff
words.
to see.
Eric has appeared in the chat. You said
He
the
has
magic
appeared
words.
in the chat. Yeah.
You said handmaidens.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, this issue was amazing with the Amidalans and all of that great stuff. If you haven't read it yet, absolutely go read it. Lots of good stuff in it. Caleb, how about you?
We're continuing a theme here. This is from Darth Vader, Dark Lord of Sith, issue #4. And this one is, again, by Giuseppe Caminelli. I just love the kind of display of skill as we're showing up and showcasing the villain, essentially, of this arc. The exiled Jedi Master was at Karuk and Fala, as he's sitting there training just constantly, as you see the little puzzle box is like floating around him as he shows this extreme amount of skill. As you know, that Darth Vader's in for a hell of a time with this man, and it was a really classic and great showdown. I love it when an artist can do something like unique with something we've seen before several times, but really upscale it and show it up in a lot better way. So that's what struck out to me. So Jacob, are you going to continue on with more Darth Vader's talk?
No, I will not. But close. The Darth Vader's biggest fan is up next. So this is art from Rise of Kylo Ren, issue #4, and the art is by Will Sliney. This is like basically the very end of the miniseries. So sorry, spoilers, kind of. You all know where he ends up. But this is a great panel that I really liked. It's the end of the series. Ben's kind of undergone his whole transformation and gone down this path, and at the very end of the series, to cap it off, he bleeds his kyber crystal, and you kind of see like the echoes of all this friends on the light side basically reflected there. So I really love this panel. Overall, just like this whole miniseries has some great art, so this is just one of my favorite out of that. So Yeah.
Absolutely. So, again, this is going to be a weekly segment. We want to spend some time talking about what we've been reading and some of our favorite panels. So, if you had a panel that you read this week and thought, man, I'd love to share this, share it with us. Tweet at us at Cosmic Force Show. And we could feature one of your panels that you picked out on the show right here with the rest of us. So we want to hear from you. We want to know what you're reading, what you're absorbing, what you love. So send us those screenshots. Send us just those. You could just send us a page number and tell us what you want us to put up here. And if we like it, it will be here.
And in case you need some
yes.
more. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was saying, in case you need some more incentive, we've been stockpiling some free digital codes for comic books, and if you submit your favorite art, you may or may not be getting one of those in your inbox sometime soon. So just send it to us on Twitter. You can also send it to me on Discord personally, if that's easier for you. It'll make its way on the show if you send it in at some point. So, but yeah, Tyler,
so in addition to our panel of the week, we're also kind of gonna spend some time talking about what we're reading. Again, we're gonna try to stay away from spoilers, make sure that anything that we're reading kind of gives an overview. We don't want to spoil anybody. We know that there are some people that might not be able to have gotten out to their comic book store or anything today, but I've been spending a lot of time with the three of you. We've kind of been going over lots of comic books and everything, and I haven't gotten caught up on everything, but I'm really enjoying the mainline comic. Again, we'll talk. That's going to be we'll talk about all the different titles that are going on right now. But the mainline comic is really where I am having the most fun right now, because it talks about all the characters out of with the Lukes, the Leias, the Landos, and that's a lot of fun. And I'm hoping by this weekend I'll be able to the latest Darth Vader trade paperback is I was finally able to find that, because my local comic store was out of it, and I couldn't find it online, but I was able to finally track that down. So that's coming this weekend. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Emma, I know as of last week when we met, you had caught up on everything and you were putting all of us to shame. So I don't mean to put you on the spot there, but are you still on top of all of the active books?
I am still caught up on everything. I read the two New High Republic comics today, and they were awesome. The other thing I've been reading this week, I read Mace Windu, Jedi of the Republic, that trade paperback, digitally though. I don't read physical comics. We'll talk about that later. But I read that and I was surprised at how much I really enjoyed it, because, I mean, there's a running joke with Utini, right? Like, we don't like Mace Windu. He's kind of a jerk, right? But I really, really enjoyed this comic. So if you see it and it kind of interests you with sort of the more prequel era stuff, don't sleep on it. It was way more enjoyable than I expected. So yeah, really good stuff. Caleb, how about you?
I got a weird one here. I was going for my local library and I found a collection of the original 1979 daily comic series. And this was done by it's starred by Russ Manning, who did a lot of like early Tarzan and other daily sort of comics. And it's just wild to see this, like the crazy like leaps of logic they're taking here. Because it started even before the movie had come out, and they just casually name drop, oh yeah, Luke was born of what's this, Jedi Master Tan Skywalker. They just invented a name for his father just out of nowhere. It's fun. It is campy. It's kind of, day by day, but it's good to see where it started at. It's just kind of a fun read, and the art's still pretty good. As he hammered these out like 3-4 panels a day. So it's really impressive, the sort of work that they put into this show.
Oh, the glory days of the pre-Disney, you could do whatever you want, Wild Wild West Star Wars. Let's see. We've covered. We've heard from Emma. We've heard from Caleb. We've heard from me. Jacob, that leaves you. What are you reading right now?
That does leave me. So I, like Emma, also read the High Republic stuff that came out today. I am, of course, not caught up with everything. But I'll get there someday. It's just I'll always be chasing that. But I got my Legends Epic Collection for Dark Empire recently, so I've been catching up on that. I know the Legends Look Back crew, especially Meg, really loves that book. So I thought I'd give it a try, and it's definitely different, but it's historic. It's important to Star Wars comics as a whole. So yes, that's what I've been reading as of late.
Yeah, Dark Empire's like I'm starting to pick back up some of that, and I don't know, just like the watercolor artwork. If you haven't seen it, it's like one of the most unique things I've ever seen done in like a Star Wars visual medium.
Yeah, the Legends, there's so much content in the Legends, and that's honestly what's one of the things that I know that we talked about as a subject that we're going to eventually talk about is all the different things that we could do with Legends, and we're going to get to that, but before we do that, we are going to go. This wouldn't be a Utini Network podcast and YouTube show if we didn't feature some of the amazing merchandise that our own Joxy has created for us. So we're going to take a very short break, and we're going to let you in see some of some amazing Utini merch that's available. So Jacob, go ahead and hit that, and we'll be right back.
All right, so like Tyler said, we're going to talk a lot about comics today, shocker. And we want to let you guys know how to read comics, which sounds simple, but there are a few different ways. There are several ways you could consume comics, and I'm going to take the first one, which is physical comics. So I am a big proponent of local comic book stores. I also read digitally, but I love to support a local business when I can, and a great way to do this is by buying locally. You can buy single issues, you can buy trade paperbacks, you can buy back issues at most stores. And the nicest thing you can do is set up a pull list. It helps you and it helps the store out quite a bit by letting them know what to expect every week. So you can just go in, you can call ahead and set up a pull list with your store. And a lot of times you can ask them about their policies. They'll include discounts or free bags and boards. So I think my current store has like a 10% discount. I've had places with like 30% discounts. So yeah, I just went over to my store today. I picked up 2 issues of High Republic. They had them set behind the counter for me, so I never have to worry about them running out. And it's a really great way to get your books. And another thing you can do that is less well known is if you talk to someone there, you can also set up you can go ahead and pre-order a trade paperback. So if you know, like for instance, the High Republic collection is coming out in a few months. You can go to your counter, say, hey, I want to just pre-order this, and they will have it. Just like your regular issues, they'll save behind the counter for you. You might get a discount. And that's just another way that you can help support a local business. So if you don't know where to go to find a local comic book store, I recommend comicshoplocator.com. You just type in your zip code, and you can see a full list. Just find someone that's like not a Barnes & Noble. Just look for like a real comic book store, and usually a good sign is if they support Free Comic Book Day. That's usually a pretty good indicator. And then also, it goes without saying, but try and find one that supports all fans. It usually is not an issue. Every single shop I've been to is very welcoming, but make sure you find one that is right for you. So I love comic book stores, and I would definitely recommend checking one out if you're trying to get into comics for the first time. But I understand having a bunch of boxes of comics in your closet like me is not always feasible. So Emma, what's another way people can read comics that's a little bit more accessible in that regard?
Yeah, so my personal favorite way to read comics is digitally and specifically on Comixology. So Comixology is an international platform to buy comics. They also have a subscription program called Comixology Unlimited. It's a US only subscription service that grants access to most of their entire digital library. They usually have 30-day free trials, and then it's $5.99 a month. And the good thing about Comixology is that it's tied to your Amazon account, so it's very easy to set up. You can just use your Amazon account. You don't need to make a new account and remember another password. All of your payment methods in Amazon work for Comixology, so you don't have to do that either. You also get discounts for Marvel books when you're part of the Unlimited program. And there is a 3-month delay for new releases, so you don't get them right away if you're in the Unlimited program. One way that I really like to read comics is subscribing to individual series. So what that does is it'll purchase the brand new issues the moment they come out, and that'll just appear in your library like right away. Like this, for example, this morning when the High Republic issue 4 came out, all I had to do was open up my Comixology app, and because I was subscribed to the series, it automatically charged my account, and it was right there in my library. So it's very convenient. Certainly not as cost efficient as the Unlimited program, but if you don't want to wait that 3 months, then that's certainly a great way to go. Also, I mean, the benefit of digital comics is you don't have to find a place to store them, which is great. I mean, I think if you've seen me in the Discord, you know that I'm a collector of Black Series and Funkos and, you know, Star Wars Legos and all that type of stuff, and books, of course. And the last thing I have room for is boxes of comics. So that's another great benefit. But there is another popular way to read these digitally. Caleb, can you tell people about Marvel Unlimited?
I'd love to talk about Marvel Unlimited. It's the superior way to read comics.
It's so good.
It helps that Marvel is the one who's putting out pretty much all the modern Star Wars comics, with 2 exceptions from the IDW. Those don't appear there, but you still get a lot of like backlog, not only of the, you know, the ones from the previous generation from like 2015, 2016, but even past that, you can still get a lot of, you know, I think is I haven't checked, but is Dark Empire on Marvel Unlimited?
Yes. Yeah,
See, and that was
almost everything Legends is on there. Even Dark Horse Legends stuff is on there.
exactly. So it's got a lot of Dark Horse things. It's kind of like a Netflix sort of thing. You can set it up for about, you know, $6.99 for a whole year's worth of comics. They usually put it on some sort of sale, so you can get a lot of comics. Plus, not only is it Star Wars comics, but you also have all access to the Marvel side of things. So if you're getting caught up on Winter Soldier and the Falcon, you really want to, you know, dive deep into all the Captain America lore they're doing there. They already have like pre-made lists of all the stuff you can get caught up with on that Marvel side. So I think Marvel Unlimited is the easiest way to really get into this. The UX, the user interface is a little bit lacking sometimes, but it's still a great way and an easy way to get caught up and, you know, invest into comics. Again, they don't have all the modern and ones that come out immediately. It's on a 3-month delay, and that's how we're going to be talking about comics. So, you know, don't have to worry about buying straight things to keep up with the show. We'll be talking about things as it comes out on a delay.
Yeah, I see in the chat that we already have a converter over there, and Andrew is talking about how his trade paperback pile is already massive, but we're convincing him to add comics. That is the way to go, Andrew. Is you have to get the individual comics along with the trade paperbacks.
I definitely want to echo Caleb's point. It is by far the cheapest way to read comics. Like, I think someone did the math, and to get the trade paperbacks for every single issue of every canon Star Wars book was like thousands of dollars or something like that. Or you can just pay $70 a year or $60 a year if it's on sale and read everything. Like, you know, it's going to take you some time, but just the access to the pure back catalog, and especially including Legends, we're not even talking about that right now. There's just so much you can get there for that price tag. I think it's unbeatable.
One thing I will mention is that sometimes on May the 4th, there'll be like a gigantic deal on Star Wars comics. On last May the 4th, I bought every single canon comic that had been released at that time. And I think I got all of them for like $150 or something like that. So sometimes you can get really, really awesome deals if you do want to own them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Jacob, I think we were talking about a little bit before the thing, like what is the best way to kind of, you know, talk about these sorts of things? Like, how are comics kind of put out into the world? Like, could you enlighten me, a noob kind of when it comes to actually getting comics as it comes out?
Yeah. So, I mean, we just covered some different ways you can read them, but you know how we're going to talk about them. Every show will do it different. Some literally just talk about every issue as it comes out every week, but that's not really going to be our thing. We'll have the weekly pull list, so you'll at least know what's coming to the shelves every week. But our coverage is going to be kind of based on your familiar Utini roundtable format. So just like the Living Force and just like Legends Look Back does, we will pick a trade paperback, which is a collection of usually around 5 to 6 issues. It's a complete arc, just like one complete story. And we will talk about that in a roundtable format. So we'll let you know which one in advance so you have time to read it. And don't worry, the Living Force takes a month between the book release and the roundtable, and that's because it takes a while to read a book, and not everyone has a lot of time. But comics, you can read them very quickly. Like you can read a trade paperback in one sitting, like absolutely no problem. So we're probably going to be shooting for more of a 2-week time frame from release, and go from there. So we'll give you plenty of heads up about when it'll be coming out, and it'll have enough time with that delay because a trade paperback comes out a few months after the final issue. So let's say it's a trade paperback of issues 1 through 6. It's a couple months after issue 6 comes out is when the trade paperback will come out. So you'll have time to catch it up on Marvel Unlimited or on Comixology Unlimited, or however you plan on reading it. We'll have plenty of time for you to read that before we talk about it. So yeah, we'll have that familiar roundtable format, and we'll give you heads up so you have time to read that beforehand. But yeah, we have that going on. That's how we'll be talking about comic books. But I think it's important you also know how a comic book is made. So Caleb, you want to enlighten us on that?
Yeah, I can absolutely pick this up. Comics are, much like most medium, they're a collection of artists and writers as they come together to create a sort of thing. So, there's, whenever you open up a comic, there's usually a list of like 6 or 8 people that you quickly blaze through because you're ready to get to the action, the good bits. But we here want to take some time to slow down and, I acknowledge that, kind of key players here. Of course, there's the writers like Charles Soule for the Darth Vader series that we've been gushing over, and writers are pretty obvious. They're the ones who kind of make the whole system there. They talk about dialogue and overarching story and beats and what happens issue by issue, and they work very closely with the artists, and that's kind of the bread and butter. The artists are the ones who go through and digitalize the assets. They kind of pose characters. So we want to take some time to really focus in on the artists and the inkers, because that's where the character of the comic really comes through. Dialogue makes up maybe like half of what make of the comic reading experience. So we really want to take a lot of time to focus in on inkers and all like that. So we want to make sure that we have that lined up. We do, as I said, we do have a one of the better ways we want to do this is we'll make sure we have a code. We have a code here to give away a free comic here. So, and the best way to get this comic, as we mentioned earlier, was make sure you leave us a question here. And the best question that we have at the end of the night, you're going to get that free comic. Is it like a free code for any comic they want, or for a specific comic out there?
We have a series of codes that we've got, and thanks to some of us that are local or support our physical comic books that I've had, or some of the, namely Jared has given us quite a bit of comics. So we'll make sure when we reach out to the person, we'll make sure that we have a code that we have for them. A lot of it has to do with the High Republic. So if you haven't gotten caught up on any of the High Republic, or if you're missing a High Republic book, make sure you leave us a question, because we might just have a code for you. So we've kind of talked about who makes up a comic. We've talked about how we're going to cover the comics, but let's really get into it now. Like, we're here about Star Wars, and we're here about Star Wars comics, and there are actually a lot of current titles that are currently being published every week. We talked about the 2 High Republic at the top of the show in the weekly pull list, but there are actually 7 different titles that are current right now. Emma, I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute, and I'm going to let you talk about probably the one that is the most newsworthy right now, and that's the High Republic.
Yeah, so the High Republic has been getting a ton of attention on social media, rightfully so. there's two absolutely amazing titles going right now. One, The High Republic, which is written by Kevin Scott, which we all know and love, with art by Mark Morales. And it's just a really awesome series. It's hard for me to speak about this without saying anything from the awesome issue today. But it focuses on Jedi Skier, the Trandoshan, who we saw in Light of the Jedi, and his Padawan, Keeve Trennis. And I think, honestly, the coolest part about this series for me is just being able to see a lot of the things that we've heard about in the books, seeing that actually drawn on a page, seeing the interior of Starlight Beacon, and seeing Avar Kriss like in action. It's very, very cool, and ties into the books really, really well.
Now, Emma, I do have a
yeah.
quick question. What about those who have not read the book, the Light of the Jedi? For one, you should. It's an amazing book. But for
Yes.
two, if you're just looking for an easy way to get into the High Republic, would you recommend starting with issue number 1?
I would say that, it definitely adds more to it if you've read Light of the Jedi and the other High Republic books. However, I wouldn't say that it's a prerequisite to reading it. It's pretty easy to just jump into. So yeah, I would say it's not required reading before. Certainly helpful. But either way, I mean, the characters in these comics, they kind of speak for their own in the issues themselves. But yeah, that was a great thing to bring up.
It definitely gives context, but you can of the galaxy events, but you can read the comic, you can read the High Republic without reading Light of Jedi and still understand what's going on in the comic. There might be some things that are going on from a general galaxy-wide view that you might have a couple of questions on, but you can enjoy seeing a Trandoshan Jedi all on your own just in this comic. And that's the thing that excites me the most. I mean, that's you don't who would have ever thought, before the High Republic we'd have the words Trandoshan Jedi in the same sentence. I mean, that is just it's amazing. The story is amazing.
Controversial opinion here. I think Trandoshans are way cooler than Wookiees.
Ooh, that's a hot take.
It is a hot take.
That is a hot take. I actually just got finished reading from a certain point of view of Empire Strikes Back, and there's a couple of stories in there that touch on that. That's a very hot topic that is going on in multiple different mediums. So we've talked about the High Republic, but Emma mentioned that there's a second title for the High Republic called the High Republic Adventures. Jacob, why don't you give us a little rundown on what that entails?
Yeah, so I got my copy right here for this week's issue, but the High Republic Adventures, it's by IDW, which the Adventures line is generally a bit more younger reader focused, but like we like to say, Utini, that just because a book has a YA label slapped on it doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. There are some great literature in the YA and the junior reader categories for Star Wars, and this comic book is the same as that. So it has writer Daniel Jose Older and artist Harvey Tolabau, and it's honestly, I've been enjoying it. I mean, I really like the High Republic, and I don't want to take anything away from it, but I think I've been liking the High Republic Adventures more so far. It's been a great story.
It features Yoda.
It does feature Yoda.
That's where it all starts, right there.
And basically the premise is Yoda is going around with basically it's described as a gap year with a bunch of Padawans away from the temple on a ship, and kind of flying around, having adventures, and it's been a great story so far. And the wild thing is, it's had some pretty large implications on the whole like High Republic plot as a like in general. Very soon, or like very early on, like I think issue 2 had something like teased that was a big plot point. I won't spoil what it is, but I was like, I did not expect to see this in High Republic Adventures of all places. If you know, you know. It was wild. I've been really enjoying this book so far, and I didn't expect to as much as I did. Which I should have seen it coming. I loved A Test of Courage. I loved Into the Dark. But this has been great so far, and I definitely would recommend people checking it out.
Absolutely. So that's what's kind of been going on in the High Republic. But for those of you who aren't caught up on that new timeline, you're wondering what's the comics that are coming out right now. And right now we're kind of in a post-Empire Strikes Back series. If you were paying attention, they kind of rebooted all the comics, about 2015, 2016, and those all kind of kickstarted with like a new Star Wars mainline, Dr. Aphra, Darth Vader, all those kind of kicked off right after what happened from A New Hope. So all those kind of went over the couple years that happened between that one and the next movie in Empire Strikes Back. So right now we're going through all these new issues are kind of like episode 10, issue 9, lower numbers, but a lot of them are continuations on what happened there. So everything here is kind of post Empire Strikes Back, and the one that I'm really enjoy so far is the Darth Vader series, and that's by Greg Pak and Niraj Menon. Darth Vader, I think, has the strongest showing in comics. I think, this series, the Dark Lord of the Sith, the 2015 version, really highlight the character and some of the best work they've ever done. So Darth Vader, this current one deals with after he chopped off Luke's hand, after he revealed himself as his father, but was rejected. So he's channeling all of that even more focused rage on finding all the people who made his son weak. So he's tracking down, trying to find out, why did my son say no to me? Why is my son such a goody two-shoes? So he's tracking down, anyone who knew Luke and as a youth and was just absolutely destroying them, wrecking them, and just the real dark ball of Sith energy as he wrecks across the galaxy. Some really good moments. Darth Vader, always a good showing.
Yeah, and the other half of that relationship kind of leads into the top title that I'm going to talk about, and that's the Star Wars mainline. And it's by far my favorite so far, because when we leave, Empire Strikes Back is arguably the most favorite movie in of the Skywalker saga, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that our heroes lose. The rebel fleet has been scattered since Hoth. Han Solo is frozen in carbonite and is going to be delivered to Jabba via Boba Fett. Luke Skywalker has just found out about that his mentor lied to him, and not only has he lied to him, but his father is the second most evil person in the world or in the galaxy, and we get to see that. We get to see there's so much, it's written by Charles Soule, so of course the story is amazing. But the other creators behind it are Jesus Saiz and Raymond Rosanas, and the artwork in this story is so amazing. There's so much emotion in these characters, and I just absolutely love it. I really can't wait till we get to talk about it, because there's panels of Leia and the power that she shows, and get the emotion that when she's talking with Luke, and then she has to turn right around and lead the rebel forces and give them a pep talk. It's just, the art is really outstanding in that one. So it picks up, like I said, right after the end of Empire Strikes Back, and will probably fill in leading into Return of the Jedi. But it's a really for if you're looking for something that you're comfortable with, this is definitely something that I would suggest, because these characters, the backstory of what they're going through, and it really gives you an opportunity to kind of a nice foundation to kind of build upon.
Yeah, this has definitely been, other than the High Republic comics, this has been my favorite current series. And honestly, I think one of my favorite parts, which I didn't expect this, one of my favorite aspects to this series is just seeing the relationship between Leia and Lando, and how they're like really untrusting of each other at first. Because, I mean, you kind of look at Return of the Jedi and you're like, well, Lando's a general. How did that happen? I mean, he was going from setting them up, for sabotage with Darth Vader to all of a sudden being a general in the rebellion. How did that happen? And this comic definitely shows a lot of that relationship.
and it really takes the time. I mean, it
Yeah.
starts early off where Leia does not trust him at all. And you know, over time we'll really see how that. But that's a great point. That's another. Leia is such an awesome character, just in general.
yeah.
But in this book, she really, really shines, and I think that's probably my favorite. And anytime that she's in a panel, I think I get most excited because she is just the way that Charles Soule writes her and the way that the creative artists draw her is it's so awesome.
Nice.
Totally agree.
So Caleb, talk to us a little bit. You know, our hero, you know, Han Solo has that memorable line before he gets frozen in carbonite, and then he gets taken off by Boba Fett. Talk to me a little bit about one of the current lines, the Star Wars Bounty Hunter line.
Must I? No, yes,
it
absolutely.
is a current line. So yes, we
Star
will
Wars
cover it.
The Star Wars Bounty Hunters. It's written by Ethan Sachs and art by Paolo Valentini and Arif Prinatano. Star Wars Bounty Hunters follows the main character is actually a Bearlet Valance. He's a droid, half android, half human, half mechanical bounty hunter, and it's cool because he was originally introduced in the Marvel run of comics after the movie came out in the 79s and 80s. And so it's cool that they're doing this great thing of like reintroducing old school characters that first appeared in those early comics and re-upping him for the modern era. Even though they're not really re-upping up, the series is definitely taking a lot of cues story-wise, beat-wise by a lot of that old 80s kind of hard punk, ultra-violent sort of action romp sort of thing. It's definitely very old school, and it's definitely probably the weakest of the current showings. I'm going to say I've read up the first story arc, and there's some issues with it. Obviously, if you're a completionist, you might want to try it, checking out, but mostly it's probably there's a big crossover event that I'm sure we'll be covering very soon called the War of the Bounty Hunters, which will be happening this summer. So that's going to be kind of focusing in on the bounty hunters. So we'll be seeing a lot more of the side characters of like Bosk and Dingar and Boba Fett. So that could be really good. But for right now, there are better comics for you to be reading.
Yeah, we like to stay as positive as we can, but there are some things that weren't our favorite in that line, so we're probably going to be focusing less on. There's so much to talk about. Trust me, between Darth Vader and Star Wars and High Republic and Dr. Aphra, we'll be more than busy. So that's that. Next we got is Dr. Aphra. So this is the second run of Dr. Aphra, written by Alyssa Wong with art by Marika Cresta and Rochelle Rosenberg. What more can I say than it's more Aphra? I mean, if you haven't checked her out much, I would recommend starting with the audio drama by Sarah Kuhn that just came out last year. The script book came out yesterday. It's very fun. It's a pretty faithful adaptation of her original appearance in Darth Vader 2015, and it pulls also a little bit from her original run. She is so fun. It's chaotic in a way that is so antithetical to the rest of the Star Wars story right now. It's just such a breath of fresh air where you got, you have the ultra serious like Star Wars mainline. We're trying to save the rebellion after they've been crushed. We've got Darth Vader doing Darth Vader Sith stuff. And then you have Dr. Aphra just like running all over the galaxy, stealing ancient artifacts, going after High Republic era technology, and all with Sana Starros currently by her side. It's a lot of fun. It brings just a certain energy to Star Wars that I think is very needed, and I definitely would recommend it if you haven't checked it out already.
Absolutely. I'm going through the 2016 run of Aphra. I think that's some of the most fun I've had reading modern Western comic books in a long time. There's just the humor is on point, the action is good, and as weird as it sounds, she's a comic book character, so the stakes are a lot higher because we know that Luke and Darth Vader are going to survive at the end. We know Aphra's probably going to survive, but we know there's a lot more leeway with the artists and the writers of what terrible things they can put in front of the character.
Yeah, and another thing that's important to mention is Dr. Aphra brought a lot of representation to Star Wars. She was one of the first. I mean, I think the franchise as a whole has done a much better job especially in the past like 2 years with this. But she was one of the first LGBTQ characters to really have a big spotlight in the series. They won the GLAAD Award for the 2016 comic series for like the best LGBTQ character in comic books. It's a fantastic telling of this character and of the unique scenario she's in, and it's a great place for people of that community and allies to see someone like that in Star Wars. She's unabashedly herself, and it's just a great addition to the character.
I want to take a moment to talk about there's a good question in the chat from Amy for Comic Book Noobs crossover event. And she wants to kind of have us explain a little bit of what that is. So, right, all of these titles, you've got the 2 High Republic books, and you've got these 4. There's still a 5th one that we'll get to in a second. They all run at the same time, but they're all independent of each other. You might see a character pop over now and then, but you can read the Star Wars mainline comic, and you can, if you only want to read one and you're only reading Star Wars mainline, you're going to be able to get a full story by that and not have any problems. For a crossover event, that is going to take. Jacob, do we know how many of the titles are going to be a part of this?
All of them. All of the non-High Republic Marvel lines are going to be a part of it. So Vader, Star Wars, Aphra, Bounty Hunters are all going to feed into this.
Right. Okay. So what that is for a crossover event, that story will include all of those titles. So what a lot of times what they'll do this is so it'll give you an opportunity to introduce you to some of the other characters, other comic lines. So you might see Boba Fett doing something in the Bounty Hunters line, and that story might be continued in the mainline comic, where Boba Fett, with everything that was going on from that first story, will be brought into that issue of the Star Wars mainline. So great question from Amy. I wanted to make sure that we addressed that before it got too far up, because that's definitely something for those of you guys that are still a little bit new for comics. That was a great question. So thank you, Amy. So Emma, I'm going to toss it back to you to kind of talk about this different. I'm gonna leave it as different title that we're gonna talk about here. Lastly, here.
Yeah, so Marvel is not the only publisher that produces Star Wars comics. IDW also produces Star Wars comics, and these ones they're called Star Wars Adventures, and they're kind of geared more towards kids. But I mean, like we mentioned before, that should absolutely not stop you from reading them. They're very high quality stories. And very high quality comics, just like the High Republic Adventures from IDW, very great comic, and these are no different. So these are written by Michael Morici, Katie Cook, and Sam Maggs, among others. It's an anthology series that has focused on sequel trilogy characters like Poe, Finn, and Rey. And upcoming issues will focus on the prequel trilogy, specifically Padme and Anakin, with more issues later focusing on the original trilogy, specifically Luke and Leia. And they usually have 2 stories in each book. So yeah, these are great ways to sort of spend more time with characters that maybe we're kind of missing. I mean, the sequel trilogy is over, and you want to spend more time with Finn, Poe, and Rey. This is a great way to do it. Great stories, probably not focused on as much as the Marvel comics, just because of who they're geared to, but they're still very great.
Yeah, for a long time, Star Wars comics were published by Dark Horse, which is kind of the stepchild in the comic world. You've always had Marvel, you've always had DC, and for a very long time, Star Wars was published by Dark Horse. So we want to make sure that even though it's not necessarily connected to any of the other titles that we talked about, we want to make sure we give IDW their recognition. Make sure we support them, because in addition, IDW doesn't just print out Star Wars comics, and that's something that we want to make sure that you guys get. We want you to obviously read the Star Wars comics, but if you find an artist, or if you find a writer that you really enjoyed their Star Wars line, we encourage you, and some of the content that's going to come out, we're going to encourage you to go find those artists, go find their other Marvel works, go find their their other IDW or Dark Horse or DC works. Comics is a huge world, and it can be a little overwhelming with everything, all the books that we have coming out, and all the comics that there is to get caught up with. But we really want to make sure that we all know the Charles Soules and we all know the Kevin Scotts, but we want to make sure that the artists alongside those, because they're as important as the story writers. Don't Caleb, what are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. As I've already said, like, writing and the dialogue makes up like half of what a comic book is about. And I'm slowly kind of retraining it, because I'm this sort of person who's used to just like rereading like all the dialogue and then going through. I'm starting to try to switch that around. I'm trying to look at the panel first, see what it's trying to explain, and then reading the dialogue. And that's making me appreciate it a lot more. It's making me slow down and noticing the details that they're putting it in. Like, Tyler, I think you mentioned a while ago that when you get a new comic, you like to read it twice, right?
Yeah, that's why I love getting the physical copy, because I do every single new book. I read it twice. I go through the first time, and I read the story. I read the dialogue, and I pay attention to what's going on in the story. And as soon as I get finished with that, I flip back to the cover, and I take a minute, and I really look at each panel, because there's so much going on. There are a couple of things there are Easter eggs from other books. There's items that they're not a part of the story. They're in the setting. And if all you're doing is reading the actual story, you're never going to see that. You're never going to fully appreciate that. Charles would be proud to know of all the Easter eggs that we're gonna uncover in these comic books, because there's so many things that are really put into the panels that it's really fun. And the art, some of the art is just fantastic.
Absolutely. So, how about this? Let's since we've talked about everything that's happening right now currently with Star Wars comics, I'm really interested to know what everybody is most excited to read. I'm all caught up on everything, but I'm really interested to know, what are you guys most excited to get into? Jacob, how about you?
I think personally, out of the main series, I'm obviously excited for the High Republic stuff, so I'm not going to talk about that. I'm really excited to read Darth Vader eventually. I've been seeing like people post on Reddit about some of the things that have been happening in that series, with like the implications with like Ochi and Exegol and all this stuff going on there. I mean, it's definitely got my attention. I'm really excited to eventually catch up with that and see where all of that goes, because I think there are a lot of interesting plot threads left in the sequel trilogy that I would like to see where those could lead to. So I think that's probably my most exciting book right now.
Yeah, for sure. I have to agree with you there. I'm really excited to see where Darth Vader goes next. Caleb, how about you?
Dr. Aphra, 100%. As I said, I'm reading her 2016 series. I'm going through that, and that's probably it's just really amazing. So I can't wait to get read through all that, and then you get caught up with the new 2020 version of that, and just kind of getting a deep dive, getting like the tattoos on my body. Like I'm all for Dr. Aphra. So that's the one that I am most eagerly anticipating. I'm not there yet. I'm about halfway through the current or the old series, but I will be getting there very soon. Tyler, what are you reading?
Well, I'm enjoying the main line, but the thing that I am most excited about seeing and where it's going to go is I have to go with the High Republic. As much for what the stories are going to entail in the comic, but and the Living Force has kind of touched on this a little bit. We've never seen a multi-front publishing strategy before, and the way that they have been able to weave in things from Into the Dark into the comic, or the characters from Light of the Jedi into the comic. I'm fascinated with their ability to kind of put all they're playing chess when the rest of us are used to playing checkers. They have all these pieces in play, and it's amazing how they're able to tell this story and have each of them affect the other stories, but not so much to where it's like, oh, I really want to go read this, but if I haven't, I'm not losing out on anything. And I bravo to everybody from Project Luminous, because it's been such a good time from everything that I've read so far. So that's definitely something I cannot wait to see how that continues.
Yeah, totally agree. So do we want to dive into some Q&A? I think we've got a few questions from some folks in the chat. Let's start with this question from Cad Ben earlier in the chat. He asks about trade paperbacks and their release schedule with Marvel Unlimited. And so correct me if I'm wrong for those. I think, Caleb, you use Marvel Unlimited. I believe it's 2 to 3 months after the trade paperback releases to the public. That's when it hits Marvel Unlimited. Am I correct in that?
3 months, yes.
Yes. Yeah, so it's 3 months after the issue, and then the trade paperback will come out usually 2 to 3 months after the final issue comes out in a run. So it'll be cutting it kind of close on that last issue, if that'll be on Marvel Unlimited before the roundtable. We'll make sure as much people can have the opportunity to read it as possible. It just kind of depends on what the publishing cycle looks like, which of course has been a little crazy with COVID and everything, with all the delays. But yeah, it's usually right around the same time that the final issue hits Marvel Unlimited is when the trade paperback will be coming out.
Awesome. So we got a question from Amy in the chat. She says, the film novelizations are pretty popular and enhance the movies. Are the graphic novel adaptations also good? I've read some Star Wars comics, but none of the graphic novel adaptations. So I can speak to this. I've read, I think, at least episodes 1 through 6 of the graphic novel adaptations. And yes, they are very, very good. They are basically the same as the movie. They don't add as much as film novelizations, I would say. However, the art in them is absolutely gorgeous, and it's worth it just for that, honestly. Has anybody else read any of the adaptations?
Yeah, so you're talking about the IDW ones, right? Because
I was talking about the Marvel, like the Marvel graphic novels that adapt the movies.
Okay, yeah, because I know IDW has done like their own junior novelization graphic novel thing for all of the movies. I've personally read the Marvel miniseries for The Force Awakens. Yeah, I agree. It's pretty much kind of just the movie over again. So it's very cool to see it. But it was my favorite. What I do really like though is a lot of the times when the movies comes out, there will be lots of kind of like one shot or mini series tie-ins to the movies. So like they'll have like the Journey to the Force Awakens, or the Last Jedi tie-in. So there's a Phasma tie-in, little mini series with like that came after the Force Awakens, and that was really cool. So like I would personally look for those more, because I don't think the comics are really just a straight adaptation. But I would look more at the sort of tie-ins to, if you're trying to enhance that experience personally.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I was going to say that if there's a particular movie that you absolutely love, if you love The Force Awakens and you want to see your favorite movie in a different light, that's how I would go into those. I wouldn't be going into that expecting some, the way that Ray Carson expanded upon The Rise of Skywalker with her novelization and added different things that we didn't see in the movie. I wouldn't expect that. But if you just want to see some amazing artists kind of covers something that you are really passionate about, and a movie that you were that much more in love with compared to some of the others, you just got to make sure that you know what you're getting into when you're reading those.
Absolutely. We do have another question here in the chat from Amy again. She's asking if we have going to be doing a Foundational 5. And I can say yes. same bat time, same bat channel next week.
Yeah, we've been working a lot on that, trying to do some comic written content in addition to, of course, this show. And I think we have a good set of comic books lined up for you guys. It doesn't matter if you're a newbie or a veteran. I think everyone can enjoy these comic books regardless of where you're coming from. So we're really excited to share that with you. Putting a lot of work to that. I think one of the things we identified really quickly was anytime someone came into the Discord asking for a book recommendation, there was like 5 people instantly being like, you should read Lost Stars or you should read Heir to the Empire, and like just like spitting out the foundational 5 books like very quickly. And we wanted to have that sort of name recognition with the comic books. So I think that's what we tried to do here. So, hopefully in like 2 or 3 months when someone new comes in Discord and they're asking how to read Star Wars comic books, you can tell them this book and like this is the one you should read. You start here. And that's going to be a great place to go. So we're really excited to share that next week for our main show topic.
You bring up Lost Stars, and then that's going to lead in. That's a great lead into our last question here, and that's: will you guys cover any of the Star Wars manga, specifically the upcoming High Republic? And that's from Chirps in the chat. Short answer to that is yes. The long answer to that is there's a lot of content that we want to cover and that we're going to be covering. So we haven't thought that far ahead yet as far as where we're going to cover it. But yes, absolutely, we will be covering the mangas. Have any of you guys read any of the mangas? I know there's a Leia one out that is really noteworthy. I know the Lost Stars one has caught a lot of people's attention. Have any of you guys read the mangas?
I haven't, but that's definitely high on my list because I'd really love to see the art of like Thane and Sienna and how the artists sort of pictured them, because Lost Stars is a fantastic book if you haven't heard it already. So to read that in a manga would be really, really cool. So yeah, it's high on my list.
Yeah. Manga's probably like the most type of comic I read. I'm doing my second read through of One Piece, so I'm really into that whole art form. So I'm very excited to actually be talking and doing a deep dive on this. We don't have anything in the books like in the immediate future, but we can definitely be looking at doing a deep dive down the line. Yeah, absolutely.
We have the High Republic book on the schedule, and like right after I put it on the schedule, the book got delayed to September. So it was gonna be the summer. Now it's gonna be a little bit later. I'm really excied to check out. They're doing an adaptation of Guardians of the Wills, the junior novel or whatever, with Chirrut and Baze. And I haven't read the book, so I was like, well, this is just a great opportunity for me to get that story in a different form. So I'm looking forward to that myself. But yeah, we'll definitely be sure to hit that. And then Tyler, want to take the last question there?
Yes. I see that there was one more question on here, and I'm going to toss this over to Caleb. Caleb, what will be our first roundtable that we will be discussing?
It will be not the comic we talked about the most. That'll probably be Darth Vader, but the second most, and that's Dr. Aphra, the first trade paperback. That's going to be issues 1 through 6, their first standalone series. That's going to be not next episode, but the episode after that one. So that's going to put us on the 21st of this month. Mm-hmm. It's going to be doing a deep dive. We're going to talk about the characterizations, about the artwork. So if you want to, absolutely catch up on that one. It's a quick read. You don't have to know practically anything else about Dr. Aphra to get into it. So that's going to be our first round table, and all of us are here really excited about it.
Yeah, and one thing, a really nice perk of live streaming on YouTube, if you actually go down right now to the video description, you can click the link for Dr. Aphra. It's in there, and that'll take you to the Utini book profile page. You can get a pre-order there, or not pre-order, it's already out. You can go buy it on Comixology, or Amazon, get the trade paperback, and a little bit of that purchase will be kicked back to help fund the show. Or it also, I believe, if you're on the timeline, it has direct links to the Marvel Unlimited for the issues. So yeah, it's very easy. You can go right down in the description and get your own copy, so you can go ahead and read it and talk about it with us in 2 weeks from now.
I can speak for all 4 of us. I'm pretty confidently and say that we all love Dr. Aphra, and we're going to be talking about her a lot on this show. we might talk about her a little bit next week. We might talk about her a little bit at the week after that. There's going to be a lot of after talk about on this show, and I really cannot wait to kind of get into that. So earlier in the show, before we get to the full outro, we did mention that we were going to give away a digital code. And Amy, because of your amazing questions and that you asked in the chat, you have won our free code. So please make sure that you get in touch with either myself or Jacob in the Discord, and we will make sure that we get you a digital code that you can redeem on Marvel Unlimited. And guys, I think that's going to do it. I think we all survived our first episode. So I want to, everybody can breathe a little sigh of relief now that we finally made through it. So that's it for the first ever episode of the Comic Force. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast once we get it there, and make sure that if you aren't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, the Utini YouTube channel, please make sure you do that while you're here, and also turn on notifications so that way you can know whenever we or any of the other shows on the Utini Podcast Network are going live. We appreciate everybody being here tonight. We encourage you guys to join our Utini Discord community by going to utini.com/discord. If you'd like to help support the show and support Utini in general, you can head over to patreon.com/utini and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. We'd like to thank our patrons for making the show possible. We'll be doing a special aftermath over in the Discord for everyone in the Inquisitorious level and up right after the show. So if you are of that level, make sure you head over there as soon as we get done here. And if you're not there, head over to our Patreon and make sure you check all that out. So for the next time we do Aftermath, you can be a part of it. A special thank you to Cheryl Bell, Patrick Ortiz, and Carl Sanders on our Jedi High Council, and Kyle Hickman, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command for their amazing support. You can tweet at the show at Cosmic Force Show or at each of us individually on Twitter. I'm at Ty Rags. Emma is at Irma Jedi 26. Caleb is at Caleb Lamanik, and Jacob is at Jacob Bosch on Twitter. Thanks again to Emma, to Caleb, to Jacob for hosting with me tonight. Thank you for all of you guys for joining us. For this special event. We can't wait to come and do this again next week. And until then, may the Force be with you.